I have heard that saying, the only true success in life is to live it in your own way. But what exactly is your own way? If we are always surrounded by people, wrapped up in their voices and expectations, can we ever truly know what it is we actually want? We grow up constantly being taught and reminded to become considerate people, to take care of how others feel, and to be mindful of the people around us. But very rarely does anyone sit us down and seriously teach us how to take care of ourselves. I think I'm incredibly fortunate to have had these few years of absolute independence, living alone. It's been like a pause button, a space of complete stillness that finally allowed me to see my own intentions more clearly. And step by step, in a world full of uncertainty, I began to build my own ecosystem of personal life. A way of living that is rooted in reducing stimulation, reducing unnecessary consumption of energy, and reducing chaos. It is a life where I no longer over-optimize everything, and instead allow things to exist in a more natural, unforced state. And today, I want to share with you how this system is being built in my life. Let's start with appearance. If we take clothing as an entry point, there's a saying that a woman's closet is always one outfit short. There was a time when I too treated dressing up as a loud proclamation, a way to showcase my taste, my status, and my identity. But over time, that illusion began to fall apart. Now, I often find myself buying pre-matched sets instead of searching for individual pieces to style. It might sound like I've taken away the joy of mixing and matching, but the intention is much simpler: to reduce the mental friction of standing in front of my closet every morning. I want my mornings to be still, not consumed by the unnecessary decision of what to wear before the day even begins. I'm done trying to prove myself through endless permutations of outfits. I no longer buy 10 different items just to match one shirt, refusing to fall into the consumerist trap of constant upgrading for the sake of perfection. This endless loop of matching, buying, and optimizing finally became clear to me. It wasn't self-expression at all. It was an invisible form of labor. Over time, I began to extend the lifespan of my clothes, choosing to consume less and keep things longer, because I realized that most of the time I wasn't dressing for how I truly wanted to look. I was performing for an idea of how I was expected to look. It's time to end the performance. I'm beginning to understand something deeper. This isn't just about clothes. It's about all our outward expressions. External things are meant to be a sanctuary, protecting us from the chaos of the world, not props we use to beg for validation from it. My mom is a housewife. Bound by the era and environment she lives in, her life is tied to the radius of our family and the kitchen. But from as early as I can remember, she always tried to push me outward. She would often say to me, "You should live on a bigger stage, not be confined to the kitchen and the cycle of daily meals." Because of her, I stepped out of that cycle she once lived in. But that didn't make me reject the kitchen. In fact, quite the opposite. I deeply enjoy the process of preparing food for myself. Being able to create something both beautiful and delicious feels like a form of self-mastery and quiet healing. At the same time, because of her influence, I've also developed a certain awareness around not over-investing myself in the kitchen. I intentionally avoid learning complex dishes that require hours of prep, and I rarely spend time mastering intricate culinary techniques. I refuse to let myself busy away an entire day just for a meal. I don't reject the kitchen, but I refuse to let it swallow the energy and time I could use to create other value. So I keep my diet incredibly simple, I don't rely on complicated seasonings or heavy sauces. I genuinely appreciate food in its most primitive, pure state. This was never something I did in order to follow a diet label or a particular lifestyle trend. It was simply a way to reduce the time cost of living. And somewhat unexpectedly and perhaps fortunately, it turns out this way of eating also aligns with a more balanced and scientifically healthy approach to food. I wouldn't say I'm someone who is perfectly tidy. There was a time when scattered clothes or an unclean desk would make me feel a subtle sense of guilt, like I was somehow failing at life if I couldn't fully control my space in a precise and orderly way. But that feeling has slowly changed. I've come to make peace with disorder. I've started to understand that real life naturally leaves traces behind. Dust settles in the air. Time creates folds in every space it passes through, and our energy and emotional states are never a straight, stable line. So when a room becomes messy, it is not a sign that life has fallen apart. It is, in fact, it's proof that life is actively, vividly happening. Now, I no longer need everything to be in place before I allow myself to rest. I clean when it feels necessary, not when I feel pressured to maintain control. Sometimes I simply clear my desk. Sometimes I organize just one corner of a room. I've stopped demanding that my entire space look as flawless as a magazine cover because I've realized that a perfectly controlled environment often comes with a kind of stillness that life itself is missing. A truly nourishing space has to allow imperfection. Home, to me, is where life is allowed to happen. Not a display space. I need to constantly maintain in order to prove that I am in control. I am here to relax, not to be a dutiful space keeper domesticated by order. Beyond what I wear, what I eat, or the kind of space I live in, there is something I care about even more, my mental state. Because I've gradually realized that the quality of a person's life is not really determined by how much they own, but by whether their mind is able to remain stable, light, and clear over time. This era is incredibly good at occupying our attention. I don't want my mind to constantly exist in a state of chaos, tension, or endless noise. So now, I intentionally leave a period of emptiness in my day, sitting quietly, focusing on my breath, and not rushing to think. It feels like a process of restoring inner order, helping me reconnect with what truly matters in life. By now, I think I've made it clear what kind of life I am trying to build. It's a low-consumption, low-friction living system, one that naturally filters out the things that constantly drain me. Uncomfortable clothing, overly complicated meals, the pressure of always keeping everything perfectly tidy, and the high stimulation information that keeps intruding on my attention. I no longer want my life to feel like something I have to constantly maintain. Instead of optimizing, proving, or chasing, I want a life that can simply flow. Of course, I am still learning. I still get overwhelmed, I still feel anxious, and I still lose balance sometimes. But I no longer demand perfection from myself or force my life into a fixed timeline. It is realizing that I actually have the ability to shape my own life. I can re-choose my pace, my emotions, my connections, and the very way I interact with this world. Perhaps this power of choice in its purest form is what real freedom feels like. I hope you too find absolute ease in your own life. Take good care, and I'll see you soon.